Hi guys, I'm Ryan Houston and welcome to my fly tying channel. This channel contains hundreds of different videos covering all manner of different patterns, techniques and styles of fly tying. There's something here to suit almost everybody, so hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, let's get on with the show. Hi guys, so tonight we're going to tie a pike fly. So this is one of the first pike flies I've tied on the new setup, so we'll see how it goes. So for this I'm using a 6.0, this is a top gun, Sakuma top gun, although some sort of short shank, strong, sharp hook do the job. And the fly we're going to tie tonight is going to be a white Neil. So Peter style, we get one that we've tied before. So this is the fly we're going to tie. So it's like the other neon you've seen with the orange head, although just maybe not as marked here. We're using the eyes as the colour or trigger point. So I'm going to use heavy gel spun thread. So this is 150 down here. It does like to slip, so sometimes getting it started can be a little bit difficult. So I put on a run of that, and then what I do is take my super glue and just run that along the shank, and while it's wet I'm going to wrap back into that in wide open turns, and then I'm going to go back over it, and it's also almost making like X type wraps across it. And the plan here is to stop the fly from spinning whenever you have it tied, because very often you can find that with these sort of heavy fiber bunch type flies is that if it's not fully adhered to the shank, that you can get it to twist. So core of the tail, I'm going to use this sort of crinkly lurex type stuff, and this is a bunch that's maybe about 8 inches long or so. I'm just going to pull some of the fibres out the end of it, and that'll give me a little bit of a taper to it. I'm going to set that on at about 3/4 of its length maybe, and put on a few tight wraps to hold it in place. And then I'm just going to super glue about 2 inches of my thread and wrap over that. So we don't want to advance the size of that tie-in too much. And then just take a big straw and fold all back. So next we're going to create the sort of body of the fly, or the volume of the fly, should we say. So we're using some white bucktail here. Take a bunch of that, and that's probably a bunch that's wouldn't be quite as thick as a pencil. Set that on. I'm going to tie just on the last little bits of it here, so I'm just going to push it on and let it spin around the shank, get on a loose wrap, and then allow that to sort of tighten in just behind the neck of the tail core that we did. I'll tie that down. As you can see, that is sort of flared out, so that might be easier for people rather than trying to fold it back. And then I'm just going to roughly trim off the tag ends of that. Super glue the thread again and wrap that super glued thread through that, and that'll hold that in place. So next we're going to use like a flat mylar mix. So in here I have flat silvers, holographic silvers, and a little bit of pearl. And again, these bunches are about 7 or 8 inches long. I'm just going to pull some of the fibres out so that we end up with a bit of taper. And I'm going to tie this on until it stops about 1 inch or 2 behind the tip of the tail. I'm flattening it out, and that'll then allow it to splay the whole way around the hook. Put on a loose wrap and pull pull up to tighten into that. As you can see, it'll splay it around. Chances are that you'll get some bit of it that sort of loops, but if you get that, don't worry about it. You can just slip the scissors in under it and split it. Prevents it from tangling. Again, glue the thread and wrap over the tie-in, and then splay this out and fold it back on itself. So that has given us our sort of baitfish profile already, and as that in itself would do as a silver fly. We're just going to now super glue the thread, pull all this forward, and just tie back up like a thread dam up to the back of that. So in our neons we've been using this fluorescent chartreuse fibre. So I'm going to take a bunch of that. I'm going to do two bunches here. One is slightly longer than the other, and we've misaligned it so it's all tapered. I'm going to tie this in at about a little bit over half of its length, 2/3 of its length maybe. Put on a loose lap and allow it to tighten down. And again, super glue the thread. Split this out and fold it back on itself. So obviously to do this we have to control our materials from slipping too far forward. So it depends on how you've got on here, but if you have the room, as I do here, I'm going to go for a second bunch. If you don't, you can make do with the one. Big straw over the end and just squeeze. And that'll set us with a flatter, higher profile. And then I'll take a slightly shorter bunch of this stuff. And go again just from it. So you see, I've squeezed the bunch, that flattens it out. So I can set it on top, allow it to splay around, pull my thread backwards into it. That'll tighten it up to the back of the previous one. Super glue, wrap over it, and fold it all back on itself. You just want to get a little bit of super glue on that just hits the bases of all the fibres there, so that then whenever you put on your straw and pinch, it doesn't stick to your fingers for a start. For whatever is about the straw, it doesn't stick to the straw either. And that just allows you to hold that sort of head shape at the front. So, I'm just going to brush that out to even it. And then slide your fingers back, hold it real tight. And I'm just going to use a permanent marker here and create the black striping, so just slide back a little bit each time. You probably get about 3 or 4 of those on. So now time for the head on the fly. So for this I'm going to use white craft fur. So this is a long white craft fur. I'm going to take a decent bunch of that. Get out the shortest of the under fur, so it's not too bulky there. And then transfer hands around. And tie on nice and tight. So what you should end up here with is like a halo effect at the front where it's all the whole way around evenly. And then, as with the rest of the fly, super glue the thread and tie it behind that. So the super glue will create almost like a little bleb of itself. It might be enough in itself to just turn the fly backwards. Okay, slide all back. Once you're happy with it, just pinch it. Take your glue and just let it run into the very turned base there. Flip this on and pinch. I'm pinching at this point. This fly finished all the tying, so what I have to do after this is put the eyes on it, but pinching it really tight and flat here will give you a flat platform to put those eyes on. Just pinch it, you'll feel it start to warm up, and then you can take that off. And that is the tying of the fly done. So what we need now to do is to put on the eyes. So we'll just let the super glue dry for a bit, and then we'll set those on. Okay, so we're going to put the eyes on. For this I'm using a 7mm fluorescent red eye, and I'm going to use my 2-part 5-minute epoxy. So I just squeeze this out onto one of these post-it notes, but what I've taken to do, instead of putting it all in one blob, is to squeeze it on and run these along it, and that gives me 2 tracks. So then I can I mix it with cocktail sticks, but what I can do then is I can just take part of this and I can push it down and then mix this bit while these bits up here don't contact each other and therefore don't go off or set. Because previously I had been making sort of like one big batch, but trying to do multiple flies with it, it tended to maybe be going off by the time you get to the 4th fly or something like that. So I'm finding this to work a little bit better for me. So I've mixed that together, and I just have a little bleb of it then on the end of my cocktail stick. So I just put a little flat spot of it there on the side, and another little flat spot there on the other side. Take my eye. What I'm going to do is I'm just dipping the back edge into the bleb and sliding it just back in case. So what I want is it then has a base of the epoxy under it and just a little lip of it, just tiny little lip at the back of the eye, and that'll help it from pulling off. Same then on the other side, flip it over, stick that into the back edge of it and just allow it to slide back, and then you just rotate your vise till you can see, are they even? Don't worry if there's gaps, because we're going to create a head afterwards, but then once we get those in place like that, then we can set that aside. That's really just to put them in place, it's not to finish the thing. So set that off to dry, and we'll take one that we've got to this stage from earlier, so you can see these eyes are fixed on but we haven't finished the head. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my epoxy, slide a little bit more of it down off the two stripes and mix it together. Once I'm happy that it's mixed together, then I'm going to take some pearl glitter and add some of that to the mix that I've made. And then further mix it in. Now I find the glitter also gives you a good indication of how well your epoxy is mixed. So once we mix that together, then get it onto our cocktail stick. So as you can see, we have this sort of bleb, and then I'm just going to run it across the top of the head, and I'm going to dig it in to any little gaps there are up the side of the eye. Flip the fly over and do the same on the bottom. I don't want the head to get away from me and get too big, but that'll settle nice and tight in behind the eye. And then I sort of come forward, I'm just dabbing it, moving that blade forward till the two join, so from the top one to the bottom one, just across the front of it. Takes a bit of practice. But that's the fly done, so what I'll do with that is I'll put that over onto a rotary dryer and let it run. But hopefully you like the fly. If you did, give us a like, subscribe, check out all the other videos on the channel and tell your friends, the more the merrier. And until next time, tight lines. Thanks for watching.